Hello, hello, hello. Oh, there it is. Okay, it's coming through. Here we go again. Sorry, second try. Um, Natalie coming to live, Spirit and Coffee. I got my coffee here. Yum, yum, yum. Mm. So I have been talking about goals. I've been talking about a bunch of different things that are happening, and hopefully you guys will join me on here. Hopefully we'll have an audience today that we shall see, and hopefully the audio on this thing is working. Let me know if it's not, and then I need to call Comcast, but I haven't had time. Anywho, let's get started. I have been sticking to my goals, and I have been working really hard. And because of that, I started to think about time again. Time is a subject that I love to talk about. I think that there's so many different angles and ways of seeing time. And when we look at it in a scientific perspective, we understand that time it's sort of this. I would say conundrum, but more than that, it causes difficulty in science, and because they don't know what to do with it, they don't really know how to describe it. They don't really understand it completely, and when they're looking at this from the science perspective, they're trying to equate time into their models, and sometimes they say, "Well, time doesn't truly exist," and so really right now we're at a phase where we're saying time is an illusion, and that's kind of what science says, right? Science is like, well, does time really exist? I mean, from the quantum realm it doesn't even seem like it exists, and from the classical physics perspective it does, because as matter slows down there seems to be an experience that happens, right? So how does that make it relevant for us? And for me, it's like we can get into the science and the minutia and all this stuff and theory and all that, but how does it apply to our life? How does time apply to our life? Even if they say time's an illusion or time doesn't exist, we're experiencing time in some way, right? We are observing time. We talk about time. It's very real to us in the perceptions that we have. I mean, we can say it's an illusion, it's not real, but we still can't deny that we're experiencing something in the world. And so, how do we sort of rectify, or how do we sort of understand how to utilize this gift that we have? And that's really what it is. It's a gift if we choose to see it that way. Life is not easy. It's a complex, complicated, hard thing to go through, right? We have suffering. People experience suffering all the time, and sometimes they're like, well, I don't even want to I don't even want to be in this time space. I kind of want to disconnect and get away from all this. um, and then you have people who see time as a gift. So how do we do this? What do we look at? So first of all, if we saw time as a gift, and what I mean is that we have this ability to sort of have an experience. If we looked at time as this gift that was given to us to experience the world through our sensations, through our eyes, through our mouth, through our ears, the way that we have been constructed, right, is that we've had this gift of experience and observation. Now, the observation is looking at everything around us. That's why we have eyes, right? We have these eyes to sort of see the light, and we kind of see, and it's lights that reflecting in our mind and all that. I don't really know about optics, but I've done a little bit of research on optics, so I don't know a bunch of it. But the light hits our eyes, the picture is upside down in our brain, but really what's happening is the light is what's reflecting for us. So we have the light coming into our eyeballs, and it's reflecting back and forth. And really what we're seeing is the way that light can be shaped or formed, or the way matter can be shaped or formed. And there's different ways to look at it, right? But the reality is that we have these two eyeballs to see. And let's just say that you were blind. You have ears to hear, which is bouncing off some audio, is giving you some sort of indication that something exists in the mind. Like it vibrates back to the neural responses in our brain, and stuff starts to happen in our mind, and we start to put together the way that we see the world. And it's really curious. Like for me, it's like, what would a blind person do? They have constructs of visuals in their head and how they might see the world based on what they feel. Do they get visuals or do they not? And that's a great question, I think, to ask. But for those that have sight, for those who can see the world around them, there is an observation that's happening. Now, I would say people who don't have sight, they're observing through their audio, their feel, their touch. They're still experiencing time in some way. And time, again, is just a construct that we use. It's a word that we use, and we've constructed, basically the way our calendar works, right? We've constructed the way all of this stuff kind of works through time. And so we can't really, it's like almost like we can't escape it, but we can if we choose to. We could pretend like we don't know time exists, but time is really just a marker for us to talk about points in time or frames that we experience in our life. So as time passes, or as these frames start to move forward, we have these snapshots in our mind that we remember. We can never really go back and experience that same exact snapshot, but we feel it internally and we remember it, and we can play it in our mind and remember and draw up memories from it. But it's still a construct of a framework that is time truly, does it truly exist? So, but here's the deal. We can't deny it. We can't say, oh, time doesn't exist. It's just totally doesn't there. It's a construct. It's an illusion. Well, yeah, it is. If we started to look at the scientific data, it says that time doesn't even exist. And that's where we're headed. I did even read a book by a physicist who talked about the end of times, and the end of times not being like there's going to be a mass destruction of the entire planet and everybody's gone. I mean, that can happen too. That's extinction. But time itself, and the construct and the way that we view time or work with time or mold time or engage time is starting to be different. Remember, time is a word that we utilize to describe the experiences we're having within a framework. So time is basically like, okay, we're going to use this word to describe what is happening during this particular moment in our life. And then we can go back, and when we go back to look at that, right, we go back in time, our mental space can be stuck in the past. So our mind gets stuck back there, but our body's here in the present future and our mind's in the past. But that's not even happening at this point. What's happening at this point is what's happening at this point, which is the present, right? So when we think of it, it's funny. I like that saying where it's like the present is a present because it's here. It's here in the present, in right here, right now, and it's a gift. It's a present for us. So I kind of like that concept and idea, like be present, because the past has already happened. We can't really go back. We go back mentally, and I'm not saying it's not important to sort of go back. I recently have had some emotional trauma resurface in my life, and I've had to go back to rectify why. Why is this showing up again? Why is this, construct in my subconscious mind holding me in the past? Because I'm a futuristic person. I think in terms of, how do I co-create with this world? How do I move forward? How do I, if I'm given more frameworks, you can call them frameworks. If I'm going to get more frameworks, right? If you saw it as film, if they're giving me more film, if God's giving me more film to record my life, what am I doing with that film? Hey, Roberto. Good morning. So if you saw your life as a film, I think that's a good analogy to see it, is like we used to feed the film, right? And so the more film that we had, the more that we can put into the frames. And so God is sort of giving us this film, and he's saying, here's your film. And then you can imprint on the film whatever you choose, but it's still the same film. And you feed it and you create these frameworks. And in the frameworks, right, that some of them exist in the subconscious mind as memories, okay? And the snapshots that we see in the memory or in the subconscious mind, we can draw them back up to look at them. And it's kind of like going through old photos. Think about it that way, right? Going through old photos and you're like, oh God. And you even look at yourself and you're going, wow, who was that person? Like, what was I wearing? What kind of hair did I have? What kind of makeup was I? Or who was I hanging out with? What the heck are you like? I was cool. Look at that. I still like that trend or whatever it is, right? We sort of pull up those old memories. Now, we don't want to, and you can if you want to, but the goal is not to stay stuck in that framework. You want to create new frameworks. You want to imprint new frames, and that's your time. That's the gift that's given to you. It's the film that's given to you so you can create new movies for your life. It's like creating a movie. We're going to create new movies for your life. And so taking from this subconscious mind, okay, and we're looking at the old frameworks that are sort of happening. Emotional states are tied to those memories. We have this emotional state, right, that we sort of feel, that's kind of, and the feelings are like this, right? They wave through. It's kind of, they're interweaved into the storyline. Like we can say emotion just comes in and out of the framework, right? It's in and out. Like happiness will come in and out, in and out, in and out. So going back to the past, right? And I've done that, and emotionally had some stuff resurface. And I'm like, what's going on? How do I rectify this? How do I overcome this? How do I get my mental state from a past experience and heal it so that I can then be present, right? And receive the gift of what is here, what is now, what's in this framework, what's in this picture frame that I'm creating, right? And then it seems like it's this seamless picture frame that we weave and we create, and it's fluid, right? But there are moments that we capture. We don't remember every single moment of every single day of all of our life. We just don't, right? So it's like there's certain frameworks that we remember, certain big parts of our life that we remember. The experiential piece of it, where we're like, it was trauma, or if it was great happiness and joy, or whatever it might be, right? Whatever it is that we were experiencing at that time, it's a framework that's captured like a Polaroid picture, and it's like stored in the subconscious mind. And every once in a while, we pull it out to look at it, and we're like, oh yeah, I remember that. Or sometimes it just comes out. It's kind of like sometimes you're cleaning out your stuff and a picture falls and you're like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that picture. And we start to look at it, and perhaps it ignites an emotional state within us that's either comfortable or not comfortable. Okay. So it's looking at time, because it's crazy, because we can get caught up in the past time frames and not understand why we're not able to move our life forward. And it's because we're stuck there looking at these old frames. And it's not a bad thing. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, good, or bad, but it may be hindering your progression and your success and your goals and what you want to do in life and how you want to move forward. And it's just keeping you stuck in one framework. But why be stuck in a framework that has already happened when you have the present framework to work with? So it's imprinting that creativity on the framework that's here and now with something new. Or not. You can keep imprinting the old if you want to on the framework, right? On the film that's been given to you. Or you can say, hey, I have this new day, this new opportunity. I have film that's been given to me by God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, and I can imprint my storyline into it. I can write the story. I can be the character in my story. I can be the main character. You know, you're asking yourself, where do I fit into this storyline that I'm creating? Because it's your storyline. You're creating the frameworks. It's kind of like this video, right? Good morning, hot granny. That's cute. Hot granny. Ooh, I like that. I'm going to be a hot granny. I kind of feel like a granny now. Sorry, I go off topic sometimes, but I feel like a granny now because I wear my robe and I have my coffee, but my robes I think they're kind of hot, but they're probably not kind of hot. But anyway, so in that scope of understanding our frameworks and understanding that we have this film to work with, and then it and the observation of it, right? It's saying that we have a gift, we have this beautiful gift that's given by the universe. It says, here you go. And time, right? The time and the way that we utilize our time is important. So we can stay stuck in the past, which takes our time away from what is presently here. And it can take time away from us kind of projecting out to the future. Now, we can project out to the future what we want to create. And we can say that we want our storyline to look like this. And sometimes the framework or the storyline doesn't look the way that we choose. And sometimes it comes out sort of wonky, right? We're like, oh God, we need to fine tune that. And that's okay. That's what the memories are for. They help to guide us into the future of what our success or what we want to create, right? If we're creating a storyline and we look at our past memories and we're like, oh God, that's not what I want to create. It's created a big disastrous mess. And you're going, how do I take that information, bring it into the present future, and sort of work with it, create and reshape and remold so that in the future, it's not exactly the same story. It might kind of feel the same, and certain things might repeat themselves, but you're looking at it from a different framework, okay? So that's how do we change our mind? How do we see the world differently? How do we allow ourselves to open up our mind to view this? Well, become the observer, become the person who's actually observing what's happening around you, the witness, right? Witnessing what's happening around you, and then asking yourself, how does that apply to my life? If scientists are saying that, like, okay, now we have quantum physics and we can't rectify this with classical physics, there seems to be a disconnect, and time is a big part of that, right? And they're like this and that and the other. Ask yourself, what's true for you in your experience with this information? Because there is neither right nor wrong. There's only our experience. I cannot tell you how to experience what the sciences tell you. They're still theoretical frameworks. They're not absolute truths. Nobody can hold the absolute truth. We're tiny. We're little tiny specks. We're like little dirts floating around. But we have our truth, which is very real for our experiences that we have here. Hi, Bunty. And so looking at that and trying to understand that, saying, okay, now if I look at this from that framework, right, and I'm looking at it and I'm trying to understand what the sciences are telling us, because science, and you'll get scientists that think, oh no, unless we can prove it, it's not true. But I'm thinking in my mind, and this is just me, I'm going, well, but what you're saying is not what I'm experiencing. So I don't think you're right. I don't care how much science you want to put behind it. I don't care how much you want to think you're right with your theories and models and what you're doing in a lab. When you take it to the real world, it doesn't add up. When I take it into my life, I'll try to apply it. And I'm like, this isn't adding up. You're theorizing all this stuff. I'm applying it to my life and it's not coming out at all like you said it was going to come out. You're telling me that, there's certain laws, right? There's natural law that exists. Okay, so that I can say is probably the closest to the truth that we have. But beyond that, it's like they don't know. They can't even describe what time is. They don't really know what time is. And when they start to go even further into it, they're saying that, well, time's an illusion. It's not even real when you really start to look at it. But classic physics, like, well, time does exist, and perhaps it exists because of the way the construct of the universe is and the way our planets are, but time is relative. And if we looked at it from a relative perspective, if you go from this place to that place, you're going to experience time slower or faster. Well, what do you mean? So how does that apply to my life? But you're saying science is everything. But then when I apply it to my life, it doesn't even add up. So that's what I'm saying. The esoterics, the spiritual alchemy, the getting the science and applying it to your life, to me, this is just me, is the most important thing. Because if it doesn't have relevance in our life, why does it matter? How is it helping me get to my goals? How is it helping me create what I choose to in my life, or seeing what I want to see, or having the people in my life that I want to have in my life, or experiencing the things that I want to experience? Is it helping me? Or is it just keeping me tied up in the past construct? Or is it having me be in the future that I can't even put a handle on? So bringing it back to the present, looking at the past as a tool. Here's the deal, try not to stay stuck there. You can if you want to. And I see people oftentimes do this. They're so stuck in the past that they forget that they have this gift right in front of them, this framework, this construct, this film that they get to create their own storyline on, and they forget it. And then they miss the opportunity. You know, I say become an opportunist. I love that more than anything, but you may not, and it's okay. I'm not telling you to be me, but I love that one quote where it's like the cup is either half empty or half full, right? And you have the pessimistic person who's like, oh, it's half full. Then you have the optimistic person like, the pessimistic person says it's half empty. The optimistic person say, well, it's half full, and the opportunist drank the water. I love that quote because I'm an opportunist. I'm also an optimist more than anything, right? I lean towards that anyway, but I'm an opportunist, and we can't see opportunity if we're so stuck in the past that we can't bring ourselves to the present. Opportunity exists in the present mind construct. Mentally, bring your mental capacity to the present. And when we're here at the present and we have the opportunities rise, we start to construct the future for ourselves. That's how we construct the future. We can't, it's like this. It's like, I'm going to create a business and I'm excited about it. But all I'm thinking about is past stuff like, oh, my sister did this to me, and caught up in family drama, and I'm caught up in everybody's stuff, and oh, I'm not worthy enough. And I just remember that time that my dad said that I would never amount to nothing, and this never happened. That didn't happen. It's not a true story. My dad was always on my side that I was going to do good. But I had teachers who said, you're not going to do good enough. You're not going to be good enough. You're never going to be anything. And I could stay stuck in that story. And right today, I wouldn't be doing half the things I do. I'm not stuck in that story because that story, it matters in terms of like going back and saying, you know what, I can be enough, and to change my mindset. But in the future, I'm saying, why does that story matter right now? It's not serving me. So you got to ask yourself, if you're creating something, if you're allowing that mental capacity to be stuck in the past, you're using your time in the past, you're stuck in the past, you're there. The framework hasn't changed. And so what I'm simply saying is to change the framework into the present, right? You're like, oh, I get to be present with what I have now. So if I'm here in the present and I'm looking at what I have in front of me, which is gratitude, that's a way to bring you back to the present, is to have gratitude for what you have now. What have you created now? Okay. And you take inventory. And you're like, oh, look, I'm going to do this business like me, my live videos, but I have a phone. I didn't have all this equipment before. I didn't even know how to do a podcast before. I didn't even care. I just wanted to get my stuff out there. I just wanted to connect to people and share information. And I just said, phone, I have tools. So I did the tools and I used my phone. And I said, okay, I'm just going to do this. And there you go. And you go from there, and the opportunity arose. I heard somebody tell me, because I was stuck in the past, like, oh, all I have is a phone, and oh, it's not good enough, and oh, I don't have a big studio, and I didn't care. I said, I'm going to do this. And if people watch and it doesn't matter, I come in my pajamas and this and that and the other. And, I'm not a Hollywood movie star. I'm not trying to be a Hollywood movie star. So I said, well, let's just do it. And so I did it. And then when the opportunity arose, somebody said in my ear, you should do a podcast. You should actually do audio, just the audio podcast. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. But if I didn't hear that, the opportunity and the ability to hear and listen to what feedback I was getting, and I was so stuck in the past about what I didn't have, I would have never moved in that direction. Opportunity will start to arise when you start to move forward. Okay. So being stuck in the past is not going to help you in your future. It's not going to help you be present right now. You're stuck in a framework looking at old photos and not taking new photos of your life. Okay. And you could do this. I try to give examples of like real life stuff. So it's kind of like this. It's like, oh, I'm going to take a picture every day. And that's going to help me remember to be in the present framework, the present moment, here, now, today. I could go back and look at old photos and stay there forever. Or I can look at photos, right now and say, okay, here's what I'm working with today. Now, when the past resurfaces, I'm not saying don't go back to the past. I'm just saying go back to rectify it. Go back to heal it. Not to stay stuck there. Now you can. Again, you can. But I guarantee you, if you're stuck in the past, you're not getting anywhere. You're not moving forward. You're not really creating what you want to create and manifesting what you want in your life. But I did go to the past, and I did recently have a lot of trauma resurface up into my states of being, because I'm practicing spiritual alchemy, because I'm a practitioner of the work. I was able to move through it seamlessly. Some people will stay stuck there for weeks, months, years sometimes. Okay. And how do we actually rectify that? Forgiveness, gratitude, love. That's my secret sauce. That's what you'll hear me say this over and over and over again. And it may be different for you. I'm not saying you have to use that process. Your process can be something completely different. But forgiveness, why? Because I have to forgive me and the person that may have created the trauma, right? Gratitude and thankfulness that I learned something from it, because there's always a lesson in even the hardest situations, even the big traumas that we go through. And then loving myself and remembering that I can share love because I have enough love to give. And going through that process for me helps me to rectify the past, and also recognizing why I was being stuck in the past, right? Digging really deep, asking myself powerful questions. Why is this bothering me? Why is this coming up again? What's the real issue here? Can I communicate it? And asking myself powerful questions, and then moving through it and saying, I heal myself of this. I'm not saying that hard things aren't going to surface, and I'm not saying that the past isn't going to come to us. What I'm saying is that we can heal, rectify it, so we can be in the future, the present. And when we're in the present, we're able to take this framework and draw up opportunity so that we can move towards our future. Otherwise, we become a pessimistic person, and there's nothing wrong with pessimism. We need that too. But we can stay so extreme in pessimism that we just miss all of the opportunity. It doesn't drive you forward. It's not going to drive you forward. You're stuck in time. You're stuck in time. You're stuck in the past. Remember, time's a gift. Time is fluid. Time changes. Time is relative. It's not static. It's dynamic. It moves. And we have the opportunity to move with it. But it also allows us to stay stuck in the past of it if we choose. So time is a gift. And I like that. I was thinking time is on our side, right? Time is on our side. Yes, it is. And I thought about that this morning because it's like, well, is time really on our side? And I would say yes. And in Alice in Wonderland, through the looking glass, she says, time gives before it takes away. So when we look at time and we look at the experiences we get to have within this time construct, it's giving us the opportunity. It's not taking away the opportunity, it's given us the opportunity. Death is for certain, and that will and time will go away, but we've had the gift of time. So I have a friend, and I'm going to leave with this because I think this is the most beautiful thing. He goes, the most important thing on a tombstone, right, is not the time of birth and death, but that little hyphen in between, because that was the journey that we took through time. That little hyphen in between when we lived and died was the journey we took in between. What are you experiencing? How are you using that little line that hyphenates, like from this time to this time? That's your journey, and it is short, right? We get a small micro bit to experience this beautiful world, even though it's crazy too. But what are you doing in that little hyphen that we get between birth and death? And that's what's important, the journey along that line. Okay? The journey is the destination. We're always on a journey. So there you go. That is what I want to talk about today. Great heavy conversation for Monday. So have a magical, magnetic, marvelous, beautiful, that's not an M word, but that's okay, Monday. And I will be seeing you guys tomorrow. And I love you guys. Mwah. Talk to you soon.